The next stop for Formula 1 is the British Grand Prix, but the next stop after that was meant to be the Austrian Grand Prix, but not anymore. The Austrian Grand Prix has officially been cancelled. It has been confirmed that during the MotoGP race weekend, a fire broke out in the paddock, and not only did it cause damage within the paddock, but it also caused a lot of damage within the garages, which would have been used for the Formula 1 cars heading into that weekend. Unfortunately, with the damage caused by the fire broken out in the paddock, it does mean that work has to be done to repair the fire damage, meaning that quite a few of the garages are not suitable to be used, meaning that the teams would have to cope with a burnt garage, which is always a massive risk. The FIA therefore have confirmed that they are to cancel the Austrian Grand Prix and allow for emergency repairs to be done to the garages at the Styrian track. This does mean, obviously, that all the fans that had purchased tickets for the Austrian Grand Prix will get refunded due to the unexpected cancellation. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to see a race. The FIA have then also confirmed that they have gone ahead and been deep in negotiations with other race venues to see if they can get a substitute Grand Prix, and they have done. The Austrian Grand Prix will be replaced with the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, with an agreement made with the race venues themselves and also with the teams. Of course, the teams had the option to say no to any form of substitute Grand Prix, but with it being in Azerbaijan, they felt it was enough time around to get themselves over to Azerbaijan. It was very difficult for other tracks such as the USA to try and get onto the calendar, with them having to travel to the USA. Of course, the French Grand Prix was an option, but initially they went straight for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as they came along and contacted first, and negotiations went smoothly. So no Austrian Grand Prix this season. We'll be heading to Azerbaijan instead. Having a look then at the race news as we head into the British Grand Prix, Audi, Ferrari and McLaren all traded times in practice as qualifying simulation runs showcase that this race is going to be close. And what also showed that this race is set to be a close one is that the times in race trim were even closer than they were in qualifying, with Audi, Ferrari, McLaren, Jaguar and even Mercedes all up there matching each other for performances. With the tyre degradation being quite low around here, this is set to be the closest race we have had so far this season. Whether that turns out that way is another matter. Renault are looking strong again, and they're hoping to try and get themselves into the points. They do admit it's going to be very difficult though, with the rest of the teams ahead of them so close in performance. It's not going to be an easy opportunity. Red Bull were left extremely angry as once again their issues were not with their car but with their engine, as their BMW PU sets them back. A high-speed circuit, their power unit is not quick enough, they are probably going to sit at the back. And all teams are ready for a fight. As we said, this race is going to be close from what we have seen from the times in practice, and everyone after practice in the interviews has stated this is going to be a close one, so watch out. Let's see if this is a close one. It's time for the British Grand Prix. Hey, what's going on guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 journey for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for the 12th round of the season, I believe this is now, for the British Grand Prix, our home event, and I'm very much looking forward to it. If you haven't enjoyed today's video, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. But without further ado, we're going to get straight into qualifying and see where we can get to on the grids. Now, of course, Silverstone is a very overpowered track for the AIs on F1 2020, so this is going to be a very, very difficult race for us. Of course, especially in the middle sector, that's where the AIs are at their absolute peak. So we're pretty much aiming for damage limitation in this Grand Prix. So let's just see and find out what happens. But here we are on our first flying lap. We crossed the start finish line. We actually go fastest. We did 2 runs on that lap because the first run that I did, I backed out of it and then I did a proper lap then to get a banker. But you can see it was only good enough for P4, which is actually better than I thought around here. So after seeing that, I was very confident that we could try and get something out of this. So now we're going to go onto a hot lap here with myself at the British Grand Prix as we go through now. The first sector there, much better this time around, about 0.2 of a second faster than our previous best lap. Opening up DRS now down the straight here as we head down towards Brooklands and Luffield now. You can see we've gone fastest in the first sector, absolutely nailing the apex there, here. I remember someone commented actually saying that these cars look like they're in ×2 speed. You'd be right, yes. It's almost like just seeing a normal hot lap and just twice as fast. But as you can see now, we go through towards the end of the middle sector now, heading towards Magnus and Beckett. We're about 4.5 tenths up on our previous best lap. So far, this lap has been absolutely sensational, but unfortunately, we lose a lot of time through Magnus and Beckett there. Lost about a tenth and a half or so, as we unfortunately just got the corners all wrong there. So now going towards Stowe, our gap is just dropping down, and you can see here that we're only a tenth up now, or just coming up to 2 tenths of a second up. So we've lost time now in the middle and final sectors of this lap. We'll try and claw some of it back, but unfortunately we're losing a little bit more time. It's going to be a front row start though for us. Formula 1 has come back home. It is time for round number 12 of the season. We are here for the F1 Journey British Grand Prix race number 102 of the F1 Journey series. As you can see though, it is classic British weather with very dark and grey clouds with a potential threat of rain, but we'll see if any does form. The 3.66 mile circuit gives you plenty of high-speed action and 2 very long straights in order to get all the overtaking done. It is a circuit where you're not going to be shy of overtakes and drama. Soft, medium and the hard compound tyres. Now tyre wear is quite low around this circuit, so we shouldn't expect to see anybody using the hard compound tyres, but maybe they might just do in order to allow them to push a little bit faster during the race itself. It's going to be a really entertaining battle, we hope, between the teams, and let's go and find out where everyone is on the grid then. Well, it's a family front row lockout because it is my cousin Reese on pole position with myself alongside of him, second on the grid. A really great qualifying from ourselves. It's a British 1-2-3 with Lewis Hamilton lining up third on the grid ahead of my teammate Carlos Sainz in fourth place. Then it's the 2 Audi drivers of George Russell and Charles Leclerc lining up 5th and 6th on the grid. Daniel Ricciardo lines up 7th ahead of Sam then, who is down in 8th place on the grid. Sebastian Vettel is 9th in qualifying with Lando Norris in P10. Next up is the 2 Renault drivers, Valtteri Bottas and Esteban Ocon, an opportunity for them to go longer and then pit for the soft tyres. Van Dorn in 13th place ahead of Nico Hulkenberg in 14th for Porsche. Next up, it's Sergio Perez in the Aston Martin ahead of Pierre Gasly in the second, or the first Ford car, should we say. Nick de Vries in the second Aston Martin car lines up against Callum Ilott in his first British Grand Prix. And then it's Pascal Wehrlein in 19th place with Yuki Tsunoda lining up at the back of the grid. So here we are then on the grid for the start of the British Grand Prix. We're going to be doing a one-stop strategy. Let's get this race underway. We've got 5 red lights for the British Grand Prix, and it's lights out, and away we go then. It's a great start for us off the line, instantly out-dragging the McLaren of Reese as we head in towards the first corner here. Lovely getaway there, and we are through into the lead then of the British Grand Prix as we go through towards the end of the first sector here. Now, as you can see, we've got, I believe it was Reese behind us now in this race, so we now have the upper hand against Reese as we now open up a little bit of extra power in the back of the Ferrari engine here. Reese getting close to us now as we head towards the end of the first sector here. Reese trying to go down the inside then of Brooklands. It's not going to happen though as we now make our way round Luffield here, and very, very close to actually Reese trying to be a little bit opportunistic there, but as you can see, using plenty of ERS and rich mixture, unlike previous attempts where normally I just sort of don't really use it and just hold back on that, but I found that the recharge rate around Silverstone was actually quite beneficial as we go through Magnus and Beckett here for the first time, absolutely flying it through there, literally on the limit. But you can already see, look, how much closer Reese got through Magnus and Beckett, and I thought that I flew it through there. So it just goes to show that the McLaren is very, very quick through that portion of the lap as we go forward. Stoke corner, Reese very close onto the back of us, might have a look in towards the Vale chicane, but we're able to hold that one off now as we go through the end of the first lap, very wide on the exit there at Club Corner, and across the start finish line now you can see we leading the British Grand Prix as Reese now here on the lap 2 now here, fastest through the first sector, but you can see that Reese is still over on the back of us now. It's through Luffield, getting a little bit closer to the gravel then. Reese now fancies a run here, heading in towards Copse Corner. We're going to go for it here Reese is going to try and go for it. In fact, now in towards Magnus and Beckett here. Reese is going to go side by side with us now through this complex of corners. Will he make this one stick? Holding it around the outside Reese gets through and into the lead then in the British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton now is all over the back of us, flustered from the attack from Reese into Beckett. We now have to try and hold off Hamilton. We're actually gaining a little bit on Reese now as we go in towards Stowe Corner, going a little bit wide though. Hamilton fancies that though and sets himself up for a run into the Vale chicane. I can't afford to scrap with Hamilton. I've got to try and stay on the back of Reese, and that's exactly what we do. Hamilton gets flustered there. Now Sainz fancies a run at him, but Lewis survives for a little bit longer. But Reese now retakes the lead of the British Grand Prix after losing it to us at the start, and it's game on now between myself and Reese. But let's go and have a look at the race start then. So here were the 5 red lights, and it was a perfect start. I couldn't have asked for anything more. We got off the line, and you can see Reese there struggling for traction. We had the cleanest run, and we're just through into the lead, and it's as comfy as you like for us. Lewis Hamilton in behind with Sainz then in 4th place. And yeah, super good, super easy, and that is that. Let's on board with Reese, and this is how his start looked compared to everybody else. It didn't look like a terrible start, but you're just going to see a Ferrari. There I am, absolutely flying through. It almost looks like I jump started, but I didn't. But yeah, Reese then probably got very shocked by the fact that that just happened. And unfortunately, he is behind. This is on board with George Russell now. So this is Russell starting from 5th place on the grid here. You can see that he's alongside Sainz going in towards the first corner, but he backs out of it very early in all of that occasion and actually allows Charles Leclerc to come on through. Looking on board though with some of the live action here, we've got Sergio Perez here attacking Stoffel Van Dorn in the Red Bull down at the back of the field here as they go in towards the Vale chicane now. Let's see if Sergio Perez can try and make his way past Van Dorn as we see all of the field flying through here. So close at the moment. A little bit of a spread though coming between that Red Bull and the Aston Martin. So if Perez really wants to get anywhere, he's going to have to get past that Stoffel Van Dorn in order to make that stick. Lap 3 to start lap 4 of the Grand Prix, and as you can see, it's the fastest lap of the race so far for us. Myself and Reese, if you look at the mini-map there, are really starting to build a gap now to the cars behind. So myself, Reese has got fantastic pace at the moment. I am pushing so hard to keep up with him, but luckily there's 4 DRS zones on this circuit. There's quite a lot, so it is very, 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 very easy to stay with Reese, but if it wasn't for the DRS, I don't think I probably would, because that McLaren is just that much faster. But at the moment, we're keeping in track with him. We're just using the DRS in every single opportunity, using my battery, using Rich Mixture, and putting him under pressure as we've got a yellow flag, though, down in towards, down on the straight, actually, and it was for Sebastian Vettel, so more unreliability problems creeping in for Mercedes-Benz now, as Vettel then DNFs. Of course, Vettel, I think he DNF'd in the first 2 races of the season, and this time around, DNFs once again now. On board here with Sainz, down at the straight now, in towards Stowe Corner. He's going to go for it down the inside on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton will defend the outside line. Sainz will have the inside line. They're going to have to go and settle this one into the Vale chicane now. So let's see who comes out on top here. Sainz has that inside line. Hamilton will have the outside line, which should be slightly favourable in this move. But Sainz, fair play to him, gets the job done. Now Russell wants to go down the inside of Lewis Hamilton into turn 1, and he's done it too. So Hamilton then dropping back now in this Grand Prix. As you would expect though, Mercedes seem to be a team at the moment that are able to qualify high, but they just don't have race pace versus the others. But Russell has got plenty of pace, and he fancies using a lot of it because he's now going to attack Sainz here. Sainz doesn't have DRS on anyone because myself and Reese are too far ahead. And as you can see, Russell then trying to find his way past Sainz into Brooklyn to now Luffield. But Sainz is going to hold this one off for as long as he can. And Sainz does hold it off. But now on the run down towards Copse Corner. This is where we could see Russell try and go for a move. But Sainz has actually got DRS then, so he's a little bit behind. Now he's going to have that DRS into Copse Corner. So Russell will have to wait now until Stowe to try and make a move on Sainz. He won't go for it to Magnus and Beckett. It's not close enough to go for it through there. But this is the reason then why myself and Reese are able to pull away. Because I'm not challenging Reese at this stage in the race. And these guys are just scrapping it out now as Leclerc then tries to pass Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc flies past Lewis Hamilton, not tries to pass him. Ricciardo tried to have a look around the outside of Stowe Corner, but not to be on that occasion. Sainz still holding up my teammate then, and as you can see now here, he's going to try and attack George Russell, but unfortunately, Russell there had to wait a little bit until the yellow flags came out, and now down the inside here goes George Russell on Carlos Sainz. Sainz though really doing a great job of holding that one off as you can see now here. Unfortunately, it's going to be to no avail as George Russell gets ahead of him, and DRS has been enabled for George Russell this time around. Of course, Russell last time wasn't able to get the DRS. Leclerc tries to go for it into Maggots and Beckett's sights though. A little bit wise to that one, but Audi looking like they've got a great race car at the moment. A lot of pace underneath them, and they're going to try and go for it now here. Sainz will have DRS here on Russell, but Leclerc is closer to the back of Sainz, and Sainz has not got the straight line speed that Leclerc has. Now down the inside goes Charles Leclerc on Carlos Sainz, and that is another position gains for Audi. That is 3rd and 4th now for them in this Grand Prix. Ricciardo, next man trying to attack. A little bit of a lockup then for Leclerc. And speaking of Charles Leclerc, he's now got the raw pace versus George Russell, and he is going to absolutely fly past George with flying colours. Also, Ricciardo got past Sainz. I never actually caught that on camera, so if you're wondering how that happened, I don't know, because I didn't catch it. But there is Leclerc, gets around the outside in towards left field. Now onto the run down towards Copse Corner here, though. George Russell is going to have a look at Leclerc. Ricciardo's going to try and go for it down into the inside of Copse Corner, but he's not going to get the move done. Russell just had DRS there, but now all of a sudden, Daniel Ricciardo's picking up the pace here. So all of a sudden, we were thinking that Audi had the race pace around here. McLaren, though, really have got the pace. Of course, Ricciardo is getting a little bit frustrated, I would have thought, seeing his teammate Reece up front leading the Grand Prix. Ricciardo's going to breeze past George Russell down in towards Stowe Corner, and that is P4 for him. Russell down to 5th place now in this Grand Prix. Back on board with us, though, now onto the 10th lap of this Grand Prix here, and we're still chasing Reece. This, literally, for the entirety of this race so far, I don't think me and Reece have had the gap over a second in this Grand Prix. We've been so close to each other. Granted, I've literally just been hogging DRS and just trying to stay with him, but I mean, it's all I can do. I don't have the pace to beat Reece at the moment. It's just not working out for us, but we are going to come into the pits at the end of this lap here, and as you can see, we're coming to the pits now, and it's going to be very, very close, very tight, but we just about make it into the pit lane there without smashing into Reece, which would have been a complete disaster, because we literally cannot afford to break our front wing. But as you can see now, it's very difficult, obviously, as we try and commentate this specific section, because I don't know why the British GP pit lane is just so long, but it is. And we come out of the pits now. I think Leclerc also just came in as well, but crucially, you might have just seen in all of that, that is Reece behind us. We have managed to jump Reece in the pit stops, and the Ferrari boys were absolutely spot on when it came to pitting. I wonder if Charles Leclerc made Reece have to wait a little bit longer in the pits, or whether Reece's stop was just longer, but we are now ahead of Reece once again in the British Grand Prix. We are in P1, obviously down in P15 at the moment, but that will turn into P1 once all of the other drivers have made their stops in this Grand Prix. We've gone into the medium compound tyres. I think Reece behind went to the hard tyres, but that is absolutely critical for our Grand Prix. And now we can see if we can try and pull away here on board with Yuki Tsunoda, though. Unfortunately for him, his run against Charles Leclerc is, well, wasted, because Leclerc absolutely flies past him in this Grand Prix. Now we've on board here with Sam, who's catching up to the back of George Russell. A lot of split strategies, actually. A lot of drivers mixing between the hard and the medium compound tyres. As Sam gets down the inside of Russell into Stowe, and Sam now has to go side by side into the Vale chicane now. This is going to be a little bit tight here for Sam, but he's going to try and make it. In fact, I thought they were going to be side by side. They're not side by side. Sam is absolutely miles clear. Lap 16 now of the Grand Prix. Reece is still on the back of us here now. I can't shake Reece away from my tail, and unfortunately for me, I'm now in the position where Reece has got DRS everywhere around the circuit and I don't, so it's just that much harder to try and build a gap. But we go wide into Maggots and Beckett's. That's a very poor run through there. Reece has DRS on the straight now, and as you can see, that is game, set, match. Reece is through and back into the lead of the British Grand Prix. It's a new swap now at the front, as we just got out of shape through the high-speed S's, and unfortunately we get very close then to the rear of Reece's car, but we now need to just recompose ourselves and go again. And as you can see, lap 17 of the Grand Prix, we are composed and we are pushing. You can see the personal best in the first two sectors, of course, be it we have got DRS on our side, but let's see if we can try and attack Reece now, try and put him under some pressure now as we set the fastest lap of the race so far. Great effort then to keep in touch with Reece now through towards turns 1 and now 2. We might just try something a little bit new and ambitious here and go down the inside of turn 3. It was a nice idea, but Reece saw that one coming and he just beautifully switchbacks on us, and we'll have to settle back into second place and try again. But I started to realise that trying to make an overtake on the straights isn't really working out for me. I can get close, but I can't get close enough. But that run then into turns 3 gave me a new idea for an overtaking spot. But now we're going to try and follow along here with Reese now as we get on the exit of left field. Back end steps out a little bit in the turbulent wake of Reese in front. But as you can see, crucially, on the minimap there, Daniel Ricciardo is up into P3 now, and he is catching as Reese gets a snap of oversteer on the exit of Copstead. So now all of a sudden, this one-on-one fight that myself and Reese have had this entire race is slowly but surely starting to turn into a 2-on-1. Crucially, 2 McLarens versus 1 Ferrari, which is not good for us at all. But we get close now to Reese into Stowe corner. Not close enough, though, as per usual, to get a move done on the McLaren driver. So now, as you can see, going into the Vale chicane, we're just going to set ourselves up and try that move again into turn 3, but I've got to get the exit here right, and it's okay, it's a decent exit, not too bad. DRS enabled now for us here as Reese now has the power of the McLaren in front of him, through in towards turns 1 and 2. We'll go for it again down the inside in towards turn 3, measure the braking point this time, go a little bit wide. Reese doesn't switch back us this time. We'll get the inside line for the next corner. We're back up into the lead of the British Grand Prix, and that's the move done. But crucially now, we have to stay in front of Reese for the rest of the race, and that's not going to be easy, especially with Ricciardo catching as well. Speaking of drivers catching others, we've got George Russell here catching onto the back of Sam. He's going to go down the inside into Stowe. Sam defends around the outside, but Russell's got the inside line, and Russell says, thank you very much, I'll have that one. And into the Vale chicane, Sam will try and hold this one off, but Russell on the inside, like we saw with Sainz against Hamilton earlier in the race, should get the move done, and he does. And that is Russell now up into, I think this is 5th place in this race. So Sainz now tries to go down the inside of Sam into turn 1, and Sainz does get down the inside of Sam into turn 1. Lovely move there from a teammate who's now fighting away with Sam. Hamilton in behind, lap 20 of the Grand Prix. We're now just on the exit of Luffield, down onto the straight here, heading towards Copse, the old pit straight, and you can see Reese is all over the back of us. In fact, Reese and Ricciardo are all over the back of us now, so we're getting under massive pressure here from 2 McLarens now as we go through Magnus and Beckett's once again now, and Chapel slowly approaching. You can see here that we go and get wide again on the exit of Beckett's, and we had to make sure that we cut the corner a little bit then and smash over the DRS board to try and get in front. Reese now goes around the outside into Stowe, and we don't have the grip though on the tyres because they're a little bit dirty from going off circuit, and Reese is back in front now once again. That caught Magnus and Beckett's all race long. I'm having such an issue trying to get the car to work for there. The balance is all out of shape through that section of the corners. Ricciardo just in behind now, but Reese then is back in front once again now. And I wonder if the hard compound tyres are just a better tyre around here, because I mean, some drivers are using the hards and some are using the mediums, but crucially Reese is on the hard compound tyres and he's not having a problem. So I wonder if they're completely neutral in terms of race performance, as Sainz now is trying to make a move here on George Russell for 5th place now in this Grand Prix as he goes around the outside of Luffield. That's a lovely exit, and Russell though is going to have the DRS, which is going to be a little bit of a kick in the face for Carlos Sainz then, because now on the inside of Copse corner, George can just retake the position. But it does mean that we're about to approach the next DRS zone where Sainz can try and get back in front unless Sam behind can make a move. So Sainz has to stay close to the back of the Audi, and he's not quite done that. He's allowed Russell a little bit of time to pull away, but Sam is going to use everything he's got. Sainz blocks off Sam then, heading in towards Stowe corner. Very clever move there from Carlos, but now around the outside of Stowe corner, it's not going to work. George Russell stays ahead. Sam tries to look at the Vale chicane, but Sainz makes the move down the inside of George Russell. Let's see if Sainz can hold this one off. I think Hamilton's just made a move on Sam. He has behind, so Hamilton trying to be a little bit sneaky and all that. I think Sam tried to go for a move on Carlos Sainz, but Sainz went down the inside, and Hamilton saw that and just went for it now. Lap 21 to start lap 22. We're still on the back of Reese here, trying to find a way through. Crucially, Daniel Ricciardo is dropping back now in this Grand Prix, so we don't have to worry about him. We're right on the back of Reese here, in towards turn 3. Third time lucky, down the inside of Reese on lap 22, and that's the lead back again in our favour. But we've seen plenty of times in this race that we cannot afford to be satisfied with overtaking Reese on this occasion, because there's a very high chance that we're going to have to do it all over again here as we go through Maggotts and Beckett's, and it's still, you can just see how messy we are through that complex of corners. Reese now gets a great run. He's going to use DRS now onto the straight here towards Stowe corner, side by side now. This should really be Reese's for the taking. We'll have to be very aggressive on defense. Reese holds it on in there into Stowe, but down into the Vale chicane, we've got enough to stay in front just for the time being. Reese now is still in second place, but it's getting so close between the pair of us now as we go on to lap 23 of this Grand Prix. Weirdly, we've got DRS on the pit straight, but I don't know why. Back on board though, with the scrap here between Sam and George Russell. Sam now has got DRS, Russell has it too, but as they go down in towards Brooklands here, it's going to be side by side now between the pair of them, and I think Sam is going to make this one his own here, and he does. Sam goes down the inside, but Russell will have the exit speed around the outside. Both have got DRS once again now on this straight heading towards Cops, but Sam gets ahead of George Russell. Russell has to stay in behind, and a little bit of a shame there, but this is the crucial thing here. Daniel Ricciardo, I said, was dropping back, so much so that Charles Leclerc here is going to go around the outside of Stowe, and he's now up into third place in this British Grand Prix now. Leclerc snatches the podium place from Daniel Ricciardo onto lap 23 now of this Grand Prix, and Reese is still all over us now in this race. We literally cannot be separated, the pair of us right now, but again through Maggots and Beckett you can see we're just out of shape. We just can't get it right. That time around Reese is not side by side with us, but he's going to be now because he'll have that DRS and he's got all of his energy to utilize, and he does so, and around the outside into Stowe Corner, Reese is retaking the lead. I think, what's that, the 5th or 6th time now in this Grand Prix? As we now try and have a look at Reese into the Vale chicane, but it won't work on that occasion. We'll have to set ourselves up for our trusty dusty turn 1 attack, but unfortunately Reese had DRS on the pit straight, so there was no chance I could do it then. Lap 24 to start lap 25. You can see how hard that we're pushing at the moment, as we did initially just set 2 personal bests on this lap now. It's lap 25 on the horizon now, and let's see if we can try and go for it. It's a little bit late to try anything, but we'll try something different into turn 3 this time. Go down around the outside initially, try and go down the inside. Reese cuts us off though around there, but we're gonna go side by side, losing a little bit of time. DRS enabled for ourselves. Reese though is using all of his battery there, which is crucial because I forgot to. I completely forgot to utilize my own battery, but now we've got a third problem that's approaching this Grand Prix, and you'll be able to see as we turn our cameras right around, Charles Leclerc has caught up to the back of us now. So the scrap between me and Reese all race long, Ricciardo caught up to the back of us, he's dropped off. Now all of a sudden Charles Leclerc is all over the back of us now, onto the back straight here, lap 25 and 26. Leclerc now is trying to go for it here versus myself and Reese. We have to defend against Leclerc. We've broken a bit of front wing though. Crucial that is, a little bit of front wing damage as we just made contact there with Charles Leclerc with 1 lap to go. We've got damage to the front of our car, and there it is. You can see the front wing damage there. We've actually got a yellow front wing on both end plates there. Leclerc tries to go for it now. We'll have to very aggressively defend against Leclerc into the first corner. Instead of attacking for the win, we're now trying to just hold off for second place in this Grand Prix. We might not even get that at this rate. We've damaged our front wing. I think the first time that we did it was when we attacked Reese on lap 25, making that contact on the apex. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't actually know that I damaged my front wing in that 3-wide moment between myself, Reese and Leclerc. It was only when I was watching the replay. I mean, obviously I saw that I had a yellow front wing and I realised I got damaged, and I didn't know where it was from. Only on the replay cams when I was getting all the footage through did I actually realise that it was during that moment is where the front wing actually came off then. As we now make our way through Cop's Corner, little bit of understeer through there. Leclerc spots that though from us. He's now going side by side into Maggots and Beckett. We've got no more downforce anymore. Leclerc has snatched second place in this British Grand Prix, but all of a sudden now, Leclerc's on the front foot. He's got DRS now on the start finish on the back straight here. Reese doesn't have DRS. Leclerc now is going to go on the outside of Stowe Corner on Reese, side by side now between the pair of them now. This is the last lap of this Grand Prix. Reese is trying to hold on here. Both of them are harvesting energy. Leclerc tries to go around the outside into the last chicane here. Reese now is going to try and use everything he's got. Round the outside, Leclerc comes through, and Leclerc has snatched the win away from Reese. We finish in second place in the British, third place in the British Grand Prix, but Charles Leclerc up there, top man on the podium. He's stolen the race victory away from me and also Reese. That was a sensational British Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc has won the race after starting, I think he was P6 or P7, has fought his way up. He's won the Grand Prix by 4/100ths of a second over Reese. We've come across the line 4/10ths of a second back in third place. That was an absolutely sensational British Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in 4th place. He got the fastest lap of the race with a 1:16.3, but he dropped back at the end of the race. I think he had a mechanical issue, but I'm not too sure about that. Lewis Hamilton finishes in 5th place for Mercedes. That's a great result, actually, for the Merc team. 0.6 of a second behind Daniel Ricciardo. Sam finishes in 6th place, ahead of Carlos Sainz who is in 7th. George Russell finishes in 8th place ahead of Lando Norris, and then Valtteri Bottas gets a point for Renault, which is absolutely crucial for Renault in their fight with Red Bull. Second half of the table, Nico Hulkenberg took P11 ahead of Esteban Ocon, who is in 12th. Sergio Perez was 13th on the road. Nick de Vries was 14th ahead of Pierre Gasly. Pascal Wehrlein was 16th ahead of Callum Ilott. Then it was the two Red Bulls of Stoffel Van Dorn and Yuki Tsunoda. And of course, Sebastian Vettel was the only driver to DNF from the race. For Mercedes, now looking over at the Drivers' Championship now, it is all square at the top of the championship. Daniel Ricciardo ahead of myself. Daniel Ricciardo has had 3 or 4 race wins so far this season. We've only had 2. No matter what, Daniel Ricciardo has had more race wins. So on countback, Ricciardo is top of the championship. Charles Leclerc is 3rd for Audi on 158 points, and he usurps Rees for 3rd in the championship. Rees now is on 152 points. Sam is P5 in the championship on 119 points. Crucially, he is starting to drop back now in the championship battle, and we could be slowly but surely seeing the championship fight slipping away for Jaguar and turning into a 4-horse race between the two McLarens, myself and Leclerc. But we'll have to wait and see if Jaguar can get back up to scratch. Lewis Hamilton is 6th in the championship for Mercedes on 87 points, with Lando Norris on 77 points. George Russell is on 60 points for Audi. Carlos Sainz is on 57 points. Sainz is catching Russell now. He's only 3 points behind. And then Valtteri Bottas maintains his position in the top 10 of the championship with just 36 points. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship, McLaren are on 323 points. Ferrari are on 228 points. Audi are on 218 points. And as I was saying with regards to Jaguar, they are dropping back now. They're on 196 points and slipping further away from ourselves and Audi. It's starting to turn into a two-way fight for second in the championship. McLaren have got a clear lead out front. Mercedes are on 115 points. Red Bull are on 38 points, tied now with Renault. So Renault are right in there with Red Bull to try and snatch 6th place in the Constructors' Championship. Porsche and Ford are still within a shout of that 6th in the championship. There's 8 points separating those 4 teams, and then Aston Martin are down there still with just 3 points. But that is it then. We're going to go into the post-race notebook and get the reaction from all of the teams and drivers after this British Grand Prix. So here we are then taking a look at the post-race notebook after the British Grand Prix, and it was Charles Leclerc's last lap overtakes that allowed him to snatch P1 away from both Tom and Rees. The pair was settling their fight for P1, but unfortunately their fight no longer was for P1. Tom and Rees have to settle for 2nd and 3rd after a sensational race-long battle. McLaren have confirmed that Daniel Ricciardo did have an issue with his car, which cost him a chance of winning. Daniel Ricciardo caught up to the back of Tom and Rees, was the first man to do so, but dropped back to allow Charles Leclerc to overtake him and then go ahead and take the victory. McLaren have not confirmed what the issue was, and unfortunately it doesn't look like we'll get any confirmation on what happened, but they do confirm that there was a problem with the car. Another person that was left frustrated was Sebastian Vettel. Yet another DNF after an engine failure cost Sebastian Vettel very early on in the race, on the 3rd lap of the Grand Prix, and it has left Vettel questioning what more he needs to do to try and get the best out of the Mercedes. Vettel clearly hasn't been on top of his car this year, and when the car is also unreliable, it's really not helping him get mileage in. Lewis Hamilton, though, on the other side of the garage, was having a much better time with things and was really shocked by his race pace. He honestly felt that as soon as he started getting overtaken by the likes of Sainz and the 2 Audi drivers, that he would drop all the way down the field. But that wasn't to be. Lewis Hamilton managed to stick with the drivers and actually managed to beat the likes of Sam and Russell in the race. But that is it for the British Grand Prix. We will see you guys next time. And for now, I'm out. Take care all. Peace.